Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
shift gears.
Yep.
Jakob, how are you doing today?
Doing good. Doing good. Overall doing really well. There's a couple of things going on here in the Nordic ecosystem, which is extremely exciting, and on the other hand, extremely depressing. So it's to be honest, it's like I'm excited, but as well I'm a little bit depressed.
Yeah.
But maybe that's just a morning mood, and hopefully later on it will be a lot better.
Would you want to start with the exciting things?
Yeah, for sure. Overall, from what is exciting is I think the Nordic are now talking about what blockchain is actually about. Like, I think people understand that it's not trading, it's not NFTs. Metaverse kind of left the whole conversation. They went to AI, right? So everyone talking about crazy futures, which is of course is exciting, but they went to AI, machine learning, quantum defense. So I think there's a sentiment and a momentum where the people that's working within blockchain and looking into blockchain a little bit more, let's call long-term approach towards this, and let's build resilient system and not do quick fixes. And that means that what we're seeing right now is we're seeing the things that being built and the partnership that's happening right now are more long-term impacting projects. So from the big news that's going on in our region, we got Swift, who are now the biggest payment and intermediary, are now building their own ledger, which means that as a merchant down the road, like there will be an infrastructure where you can actually go on chain. They want to do stablecoin, they want to do some smart contract, but they are in 100 plus countries. I'm not sure about the details, but they were like extremely large. So they're building on top of Ethereum together with Consensus and Linear. So we have some of the big payment infrastructures and now looking into ledgers. You've got Danske Bank, who want to do a stablecoin together with 8 other banks, which is a huge AUM that's now going to have some rails for stablecoins. You've got the UN, who are now really looking into blockchain. They're doing something early November together with us, and they are focusing on blockchain, like real use cases for blockchain, digital identity, wallets, supply chain, like really building the infrastructure. So there's a lot of exciting stuff going on. We got our new conference just published yesterday, and this year we're gonna be larger than the last year, and that's kind of what we've done for the last 8 years. Each year keep on growing, and it's growing based on the activity that's going on. So quite excited on that matter. Like a lot of real use cases, a lot of infrastructures being built, and the public sentiment toward blockchain is really changing. So that's why I'm extremely positive.
Sounds good. Wow, there's a lot of things in there. Why do you think that, like, what is going on right now, do you think, that's enabling all these things? I mean, blockchain has been around for a long time, and people have been very bullish on it for a long time as well. Is there anything that's different now as, say, 5 years ago or 10 years ago?
Maturity. Like let's be honest, when we all started out looking into, let's say 10 plus years ago, it was undefined future that we could define ourselves with a lot of technical things and with a lot of things that we can do this tomorrow, we can do this in a couple of years. And now we spent 10 years of building stuff, and the infrastructure are getting in place. Like from a technical point of view, the protocols now have different attributes, like the gas fee is really going down. You see the opportunity to do smart contract, programmable money, from onboarding, like actually going into blockchain and build something. You got large exchanges, you got custodian providers, you got wallets, you got your own MetaMask wallet, you got a Chrome extension where you can log into whatever you want using your wallet. So I just think there's a maturity in the technology that we haven't seen before, and it kind of accelerated the last couple of years. There was quite a big, again, boom during the pandemic where a lot of exciting things were being built, but maybe the resilience in what was built wasn't really ready yet. But what we see now is that we got the infrastructure in place, which now gives the opportunity to do real adoption, like enterprise adoption. And that's some of the exciting news that I said, that's institutional adoption. So that's on one hand what extremely exciting and why I think we're ready now. The other thing is that when you start showcasing these things, like showcasing that Danske Bank, the banks that have been talking about crypto is bad, have been behind the walls building their own stablecoin, right? So there's a public sentiment toward that crypto trading, that's just a use case over here. but using the technology would actually solve real things. So that means the next wave of solution and tangible solutions are now being built and going to the market. Like digital product passport is going to be real in 27. It need by law to be implemented. The solution are now being built using blockchain, right? Digital wallets are now being built and being used. So I think it's the whole promises that we had as an issue 10 years ago. Everything could be done. It would solve everything, like just with AI right now. AI can solve everything. The same thing with blockchain. It can solve everything, but of course it can't solve everything. Maybe it's just a fragment of a larger tech stack, but now we're actually showing and the world can see what it's used for. So I think that's the maturity in the technology, maturity in people working with it. I think that's the main thing. And now the more negative part is from a European Nordic perspective, we are really falling behind. And that's why when I said I was a bit depressed, we can just see we're acting way too slow in the Nordic region. Things are happening, but overall, the Genius Act in the US, they're going full steam. Asia's going full steam. EU is still, which I like ensuring we got a regulatory framework. We think about privacy and consumer protection, which we should, but we're still moving extremely, extremely slow on the regulatory scene, which is why I'm a little bit depressed. But that could be changed.
What do you think it would take for that to change? What do you think it would take for us to go full steam ahead in the Nordics and in the EU?
Yeah, I always like to point the finger towards yourself, right? I think this whole wave that have been of not that tangible use cases have done that the public opinion towards it haven't been that positive. That means people like me, I spent 5 years in the state. I didn't want to spend time on educating people if they thought that what I was saying didn't make any sense. So I think we as an ecosystem haven't been focusing on presenting the real use cases. We haven't spent time on talking about it. Like Maersk have implemented blockchain in the e-bill of lading on a global scale in 11% of their supply chain. I mean, I didn't know it before half a year ago because I thought they didn't work on anything, right? But that's not something that people are talking about. That Danske Bank, they chose not to talk about it. So I think it's more, let's talk about the real use cases. Let's talk about what it means to implement it in supply chain. From a consumer perspective, you will be able to see if it's greenwashing or not, right? You will be able to see if what you're buying as a consumer is true or is just greenwashing, right? From a digital wallet, it will be able to give people access to things they wouldn't have access for before. Real world assets in real estate would give the opportunity, at least for me, to come into the real estate market with a small amount versus right now, real estate is for people who have a lot of money. So I think it's just up to us going back as what we tried to do 5-10 years ago, actually just educate and talk about all the positive things instead of maybe saying we don't want to spend time on it or they don't understand us or let's just move somewhere else. So I think it's just up to people that's working with the technologies, just talk about it and step back and just educate.
Well, let's talk about it and let's educate.
Yeah.
Is there any one use case you'd like to dive into and maybe explain how it works and what real world value it brings?
I think before we go into that, I think there's a state of the union in the Nordic region we all need to kind of like accept when we're talking about what use cases is relevant. So of course, it would be good for us to have a stable coin, right? It would be good for us as a consumer to be able to save, let's say, 1%, 2% on a transaction fee. It would be great for us to have instant payment, instant verification. Digital wallet would be good for people who maybe can't get a bank account. Like I think there's a lot of these classic use cases from a global perspective that would be good in the Nordic. But let's be honest, it's not really an issue for us, right? Like we are quite privileged here in our region that we have the opportunity to. I trust the banks, I trust the authorities. I in general trust. I trust a lot of people, and I don't have issues. Of course, I pay an extra fee, which I don't like, but I'm in a good place. Not really that's changing something for me, and that's the use cases we're seeing on a global scale. Like inflations, people sending money back home, or just trusting the banks or trusting authorities. That's a real use case, and that's what we're seeing on a global scale. Like that's what we really are seeing. That's what's picking up, and that's something we could talk about. But I don't really see that. Of course, it's more nice versus need to have, because we have quite big trust in the society we live in. So for me, what I see as a consumer, as a citizen, trust and transparency. Like I think in this world where I have no idea what's really going on, like I hear about what's going on in the news, I hear international firms talking about X, Y, Z. I think in the Nordic, besides the use cases of the transaction, I think it's trust and transparency. And when we talk about trust and transparency, that's for me what blockchain is. It gives you opportunity to actually validate data, validate that things are actually true, validating that the governance structure, validating these things. So when I think about really good use cases in the Nordic that I think we're going to see very soon is the transparency and trust. Things like the digital product passport. As a consumer, I really want to do a difference. Like in this world we're living in, I want to make sure that when I spend my money, I want to feel like I'm doing a difference. Like even if I'm not, I really want to feel that I'm doing a difference. I want to make sure I can validate when I take a choice, both when I'm taking a consumer choice, if I'm buying goods, if I'm buying just my day-to-day business. I want to make sure when I choose to buy something that's trade, let's take some of the same like Svanemærket, or it's trademarks of you're actually doing something good, right? Like
Fair trade.
Fair trade as a good example, and I just want to have the opportunity to validate. Like I want to have a consumer choice, and digital product passport, which is basically giving the suppliers the obligation to report downstream supply chain. You cannot just buy something at a shitty place and then put some green wrapper on and then sell it. You need to be able to document the whole supply chain in it. For me as a consumer, knowing that I can trust what I'm reading at the box when I'm looking at it, I want to make sure that's true. And I think the digital product passport, from a consumer perspective, is going to be a real use case that's tangible. Maybe from a large scale, it's not going to do a different, but at least it's going to give me a feeling as a consumer I'm actually doing something. Like I'm really doing something. So I think digital product passport is a really strong use case in the Nordic region. And it's being built right now, and it's going to be implemented in 27. So it's not something we're going to see overnight, but I really hope that this would give consumers the opportunity to take an educated decision. So that's one of the use cases that I think is extremely important and really, really important for me as a citizen. So I feel I get empowered again. So that's a use case I really believe in. I believe as well in there's multiple different things, but I think that the privacy thing, so digital identity and wallets again. We talked about AI, ChatGPT. Like everyone now knows that if something is free, you're the product. Everyone knows it, but we're feeding the models like crazy, right? Like I use ChatGPT. I'm a background is in audit and Excel sheets. Like I'm not good at writing. Like I really love ChatGPT to structure my things, but I'm really worried that I shouldn't put everything in there. So I still try not to I don't put sensitive data in there, but I still feeding the model for free. Like so the whole thing of saying what does it actually mean from a privacy perspective? Like I got my data. If you look at mitID as an example, like it's just a login, right? Like I'm just have my security on my phone, so I know I'm logging in here. It's only me, but it's still multiple different people that owns my data. I have no idea if they're gonna how they're gonna keep it safe. We know there's a cyber war going on right now. Like we know that for a fact, and we know a lot of these platforms are getting hacked. So the privacy part of it, can I own part of my own data? Can I be in control? And that's where like digital identity and digital wallet. If you take a MetaMask, I choose the access that I want to give to a Web3 platform that I'm going in. Like they can see this wallet or they can see this wallet. It can't be the same with digital identity saying, yeah, now I want to provide, like now we're having this meeting here. Like, yeah, of course you should share address, you should share some kind of information, right? Like I can choose to give you access for that. Am I going to the healthcare? Like maybe I want to give them all my data, but basically going in and saying, I own my own data. And you can do that with digital identity and digital wallet. Like digital wallet, you can decide what assets or information you want to give into. And I think that's from a Nordic perspective, that's some of the use cases that provide value for us as a consumer. That's why digital product passport, digital identity, digital wallets is something that I feel from the larger picture is not really doing a large financial difference. But I think from a consumer and a citizen perspective, that's where I can feel I'm empowered. And we got regulatory things from the EU trying to govern this, and it's an ongoing thing. EU is working on digital wallet, digital identity. They already got some projects where you own the data and you can provide it. So from a larger scale, I think this is the things consumer-oriented product or citizen, let's call it citizen solutions. I think that's what we will see in the Nordic, and I think when that starts picking up, people would understand that, okay, this actually makes sense, and that will open the wider window to other good use cases.
So blockchain is obviously supposed to be a technology for transparency and openness, and everyone can see the rules behind it. But if we're being honest, it's also very technical, and it can be hard for the individual user to verify that the rules are being followed. And it might just feel like another technical solution, the same as a public one like mitID, or a private one like logging into Google or Apple or something. Do you think that people will have a higher trust in blockchain-oriented solutions in the future than other available technologies?
I think there's two questions you need to ask yourself. Like, do you know how the internet works? Do you know how cloud work? Like, I don't know it. I know the principle behind it, right? I know that cloud gave me the opportunity to have my phone with my data on it, and then I can connect, and that means I actually got a powerful compute, and I can connect with other people. Like, so I know it's going up and down. Like, that's basically what I know of cloud, right? And the question is that when do we reach that with blockchain? And if you look at the evolution of blockchain, it hadn't really been consumer oriented. Like, to be honest, I don't want to have a ledger. Like, I don't want to have a cold ledger with all my savings under my pillow. Like, I don't want to have it. Like, and a lot of people like it, but I don't want to have it, right? So the usability of the technology haven't been that easy. Like 12 seed phrases, I can't remember. Sorry, I just can't, right? Like, I want to have like a entry point to usage of blockchain. And now we talk a little bit more about tokens and digital assets. That haven't really been built yet. It have been built, but not on a mass scale. So I think there's some steps that need to be solved. The interface need to be a lot better. It needs to be a lot easier to understand it. If you look at a blockchain explorer, I think the evolution, if you looked at it to begin with, that was quite complicated. Like, it was just a lot of numbers and a lot of different data. Who knows what that actually is? You got security firms, you got chain analysis, you have larger firms that's now aggregating the data and showcasing it in an easy way to understand, but it's still extremely hard to understand what's going on chain. So I think, like, if we need to reach the point of cloud and the internet in general, there are some there's some things that need to be solved. How do we interact with it? I think MetaMask is a good example of, like, it was quite easy for me to create it. It's a extension on my Chrome. I can go in, I just need to have a password. And of course, there's a seed phrase I still need to remember, but that's easy for me to understand. Reading things on chain is still complicated for Jakob as a private individual. Like, it's not that easy. Like, it is not intuitive. It's not, I need to sit down and think. It's not where I do something late night or just do something on the go, right? I need to sit down and pay attention. So there is these, the use of interface, how we interact with it, that still need to be solved. There is already projects where they're saying, like, why just use an email, right? Like, so you got the opportunity to have an email. You can recall your, or get your code if you're missing it, right? So it is being built, but there's this whole thing of usability that need to be solved. Then trust, like, how do you reach a state of trust? Like, and I think that goes to, I trust the government, but I know that people that's not trusting the government, right? Someone trusts something, but how do you reach at a consensus where this is something that we trust? And I think, and might be naive, if data is available and everyone can validate it, then it should provide trust. And then the question is, does it need to be trust on a state level? Like everyone is getting their protocol or their product audit. So there's audit processes, but that's a private firm that you need to trust. So of course, I should be able to trust things because they've been an audit. But again, that's just by a firm. So the discussion, and that's where it becomes a bit tricky. Should it be a government, or should it be EU, or should we have some kind of audit and validation of the code to reach the point of trust? Usability and trust. usability can be fixed. Trust is a more, I think it's a little bit, it's hard to define what trust actually mean, because it's a public sentiment as well, but there is a discussion, how do we actually ensure that everyone trusts it?
I'm very happy you said trust, because the way I see it, the one problem that blockchain solves, and solves very well, is trust, because it's a decentralized technology. You have many players, nodes in the network, where you want to create a system where you don't have to trust anyone. It's decentralized. There's no central entity that everyone has to trust. So how do we find something that everyone can trust? I mean, if there's no people behind it, if there's no government or company or even audit firm, do you think we can reach a level where people just trust in the system itself, where it doesn't have to be backed by, a government or a company or something?
Really interesting topic. So there is this whole code is law. Code is law, and right now, if it's done, it's done. And then there's one direction saying like, well, if the code had flaws, then the code had flaw, and that's the way it is. Then you can do roll up, you can do forks, you can do all these different things to optimize it based on a governance structure, like basically saying the users are voting for, let's upgrade this one, which is happening in general in a lot of the big protocols. So you can say code is law, but again, it's going back to how do you see it, and now it becomes a personal opinion towards it. It becomes more that code is law, but let's not be naive and think a code can foresee what we need in 5, 10, 20, 30 years. So my personal, and this is really personal opinion, is that it need to be with some kind of governance structure that's reflecting the state of the world, or the state of the nation, or the state of something. So we got the opportunity to update things. Like if you look at the evolution of human nature the last 100 years, like we really progressed a lot. Let's not be naive and think we reached the perfect state right now. So my personal belief is, yeah, code is law in that aspect of like, if you like, law is law, code is law, but we should have a way to be able to update it on an ongoing basis, because we as mankind are evolving all the time. So it needs to be a governance structure, maybe just like you see in some of the foundations right now, where I think Ethereum have done it quite openly. Like you make a proposal, everyone can vote for it, everyone can comment it. That's, at the end of the day, it's the same as we have in democracy, right? You got people who can do a borgerforslag, or they can put something up at the parliament. It's open, everyone can ask questions. Then we elected someone who can basically vote for it, and if that's voted for, it get implemented. So I don't see this thing as something new. Like that's already how we're operating in democracy. We elect someone, which would be our public elected, which could be a delegate. The delegate then maybe syndicate with someone, so the delegate have a delegate. And then they vote, and then they talk. And if you don't like it, you will go back, and then you wouldn't vote for them the next time. You wouldn't delegate. So I think it's more going back to, again, it becomes very personal as well. Did we succeed in version 1 of protocols? I would personally say for sure not. Like, not at all. I didn't introduce myself, but I worked 4 years as a venture capital in the US, investing into protocols, and seen some of these, let's call it, cycles that have been going on. Capital just went insanely into the whole economy, because now you had ICOs, which gave you a unique opportunity in history to get extremely fast liquidity, right? You could invest as a VC and get liquidity within 6 months. That's unheard. Normally, the old Silicon Valley was 10 years, +2, +2, +2 from a legal structure. Like, you wouldn't be able to pay out your investors that fast. Right now, you can invest into a ICO, you can get your money back right away. Like, so I think if you look at the capital and the voting and the government structure and who actually can decide at the current setup, I don't think that's reflecting what we actually want to have if we want to build trust and transparency. DAOs is a good example. The early DAOs, like I love the principle behind it, but I think it's 80% of all the governance token is owned by 10%. That's not really something to do with democracy. So I think it's the new wave, and I think capital kind of ruined it because there was so much capital flowing in, and you got the opportunity to float the market with treasury coins and all. Like, you could basically have some market mechanism that wasn't that healthy. So I think if you're going back to how it works right now, there's still a lot of whales out there. There's still a lot of and I respect it. I think they have their role. I think it's for most of them it's fair. You took a chance on the new technology. You did. You should be rewarded for trying to take chances and trying to develop something. So I think it's fair enough that at least in some of the cases it's more than fair that people have extremely big holdings. But if you're talking about you want to create something down the road that we can use as a normal citizen, where I don't really care about, I want financial stability, I want trust and transparency, then I think it's different solutions that need to be created. And that's why you can say if there's maximalists in different protocols, but it have use cases. But as a normal citizen, I don't care about financial gain. I want trust and transparency. And that's I think that's the new era and the new open discussion we need to have in the ecosystem, is saying, yeah, there's, I wouldn't call it legacy they have, but if we want to build something, then we might need to restart, because is it fair that if this should be the system to rule all, is it fair that someone have such a big opportunity to basically affect the market or affect how things are working?
Yeah. So I just had a very interesting thought. In the name of trust and transparency, in the Nordics, we have very high trust in our system and our public institutions. Should the governments in the Nordics be in charge of the blockchains?
I think it becomes a philosophical question, and I haven't this again. I need to say it's going to be a personal opinion here, because like in NBA, we're trying to represent and educate towards it. We shouldn't take a decision like that. We took a very high, sharp standpoint. We're not going to have an opinion towards how things are going to unfold. We want to educate and we want people to take their own decision. So now it becomes again a personal opinion towards it. I think the question is first of all, how should a state be run in the future? And who should we put the responsibility towards? And I think if we take how should a country or government be run, I think there's a whole new future of I wouldn't say SaaS models, but why do we need to build everything in Denmark ourselves? Why do we need to build mitID? Why do we need to build everything ourselves, like healthcare systems, and we should build more on a global scale. So I think nations are more going to go towards buying SaaS solutions. Why should we buy a new infrastructure for Rejsekortet? Why should we build it ourselves? Why shouldn't we contribute to a EU or maybe a global project that's going to build a Rejsekort that can be implemented on a global scale? So I think this whole nation where we are thinking about a public healthcare and public service as something we build ourselves, I think we're going to look into more global partnerships where we build something together that can be replicated. So that's my assessment of where governments and countries are going to go, is that as the more digital we go, instead of building ourselves, we should build something together on a global scale. That means that taking that into consideration, government shouldn't have anything to do with protocols. Protocols can build themselves, build a solution that the government then can choose to use. But I think that's where it becomes a little bit, as a citizen, I have voted as a citizen towards the government. So if I like them or not, I still feel is representative of our opinion in our country. That means I think that governments should have something to do with protocols, because I trust the government. I have voted for the government. Maybe I don't like the current prime minister, but I still love the principle of that we voted towards it. So I think they got a role to play. And the question is more, is it a saying in, let's say, foundation level, or it's more saying this is the rules you need to play by? And I think I'm leaning more towards it's the rules they need to play by. So government goes out and say, if you want to operate in the Nordic, then you should be GDPR compliance. You should be privacy versus anonymity. There should be a way where we can get data if we need it, but only if you're not doing if you're doing things that's illegal. So I think for me, it's more saying in the new world order where there's going to be a digital space, there's going to be a digital thing. We need to think global from day one. I worked as I worked as a consultant for 5 years in the US. I worked from Denmark most of the time, paid taxes in Denmark. I'm extremely happy for it, but we're going to have a global workforce, right? So it's more saying that I think the states should be to be ready all the ministry can work on a digital matter, and then make sure that the values that we have as the Nordic countries are part of what's being built. But we cannot decide on how they're building it. We just need to make sure we set out standards on how they comply with it. So again, I'm still haven't really decided on my opinion towards it, but it needs to be together with the protocols. It needs to be, they're building the infrastructure of the future. So we need to make sure when they build something in, they build it with the core values that we need as a state, like transparency, trust, and these things.
But the layers of trust in this kind of model would be that me, as a private citizen, I trust the government, and the government trusts the protocols.
That could be the way, and then the way that I'm looking at it is then you can go in and verify it, right? Like there's quite an interesting PhD project in Italy where they did a quite simple, but they basically look at a city state, looked at all the public elected, what they promise during their election campaign, wrote that down quite detailed, so they kind of had an idea of their standpoints, and then they took all the different voting processes that have been done, and then matched it, just tracking public data, tracking it on chain, and then you could basically validate if they were doing what they promised or not.
Were they?
No, he said there was they were not most of the time, but he said, with all respect for the public elected, there was some good reasoning behind.
Okay.
And he said some of the learnings was that there was a reasoning behind that you need to do compromise, right? You cannot just say this is the 10 things that I do. Reality is compromising and is doing whatever Trump called it deal making, or I think we would just say there's a consensus on we might not agree, but what is our common goal? So both it showcased that yes, some of them wasn't doing it, but in most cases there was actually a reason behind, because then you could see that they basically voted no towards something they publicly said they would like to do, but then they actually got 2 yeses over here. So you could see the compromise made, which I think, I mean, you can talk about public elected not doing what they're promising, but let's be honest, they really want to do a difference, right? Like, I really believe they want to do a difference, right? So I don't think they're not, if they take a decision that we disagree upon, then there is a reason behind it. And that reason came out quite fast, because you can say, okay, most of them voted yes to most of the things that they said. Then they said no, and then they have the opportunity to basically show the fact. And then a couple of them said, yeah, but I made a coalition on green. Our green approach, but I had to make a coalition, and to accept that coalition, I had to accept something on a different topic, right? So it created transparency, because we must trust that everyone are trying to do their best. I mean, that must be the essence of most people. And this showed that there was a reason why they didn't do what they actually said they wanted to do. Which I think would be really good for the public elected, so they could argue saying, but this is right. Like, I could have said no, but then I wouldn't have gotten this part of it. And the next level that he tried to do, which he didn't do in the project, was rate it and saying what was the most important part. So it was often the things that wasn't that important that they didn't follow on. They said maybe green transition is our most important thing, or maybe it's immigration, and then they could see they actually managed to vote yes for their high priorities and against their low priorities, but it was because they wanted to get their high priorities, which I think it makes sense in the real world. So this is stuff where you can say, if the government do something on a protocol, we as public opinionator can go in and talk about it, right? Saying, okay, why did you actually do it? Like, why was it they got the opportunity to show the data and you trust them, right? That's kind of the issue, because you don't really trust it because you feel they're saying things. So that could be one of the examples of saying, if the governments implement some kind of protocol, we can verify if they're doing it, and that it should help both parties, right? It will make it easier for public electors as well. Imagine how many stupid questions they're getting, like getting so many stupid, like, imagine you should know everything. Like, I got quite a lot of respect, because you get questioned for everything, and then you need to sit down and understand the topic and understand the topic.
So using an open blockchain ledger to basically verify that politicians are doing what they're promising before they get elected, and then you have something to check it.
That's a PhD project, which is one of the examples, right?
Yep.
And right now we get you can get public access to a lot of these information anyways. It's just on a homepage, or you need to send an email. Like, it's just automating and digitalizing what we're already doing. So I think it's not promising something. Now we can do a lot of things we couldn't do before. We're just doing the same, a lot more easier, a lot more transparent, and create trust, right? Because you can get access to a lot of the things that's going on. Like, you can go into Folketinget, like you can go in and follow the discussion. You can see the things, like the information is available. It's just, then it's in an offline media, then it's on a homepage, then it's on telly, right? Like, but if you get the decisions on chain, it's easier to access.
And also in places where maybe they don't have the same trust in the government.
So I think, like, now we talked about the Nordic, right?
Yep.
Like, there's for sure other places in the world where that would be assessed, like really would be extremely important. And then you can discuss if they're ready for it. But I think in the Nordic, we should be, right? Like, we should be, because we are sharing everything anyways, right? Now it's just about doing it in a more sufficient and easier way, and try to build compliance in it as well.
Stablecoins. Do we need stablecoins in the Nordics?
It becomes it becomes a bit more political, because we don't need. Then we should create a Nordic stablecoin, right? It doesn't make any sense to create a Danish. You can create a Danish stablecoin, right? And then you can trade between you and I, and we can trade like that. That's good from a global scale. Like, it doesn't really do anything. You could then discuss if you do it as a Nordic stablecoin. I don't think it really makes such a big financial difference, right? Of course, we trade between the countries, but I think it's from a geopolitical point of view, like, why not be a strong Nordic region? So again, it becomes a bit of a personal opinion here, but I think, like, the Nordic are built on the same values, the same regulatory framework, the same approach. We might be different, but at the essence, like Scandinavia or larger Scandinavia or New Nordic, we're built on the same fundamental parts of it, right? So there could be something where it actually would make a lot of sense that we take a standpoint and create something. But then again, do we want to create something just for the Nordic, or we rather want to push for a larger EU, right? Like saying, okay, let's do it together with EU and back that up. So I think there's something need to be decided on, and I think I lean towards, let's do a Nordic one, but more just for opening up and making cross-border, and the coherence and the feeling of the Scandinavia is the same.
Cross-border. I mean, does it make sense for everyday people in Denmark and Sweden and Norway?
Not for everyday. Like, I don't have you done anything with a Swedish company? Swedish, no, right? Like, so that's why, like, from a use case perspective, from the citizen, it doesn't really make a sense. But I think it's more like of a statement of that the Nordics should do something together. Like, why are we trying? Like, again, it becomes a personal opinion. I'm not saying it should be a greater one big country or one thing, but at least let's try a really good way where we have the same digital strategy, the same like infrastructure strategy, which we already have. So it could make sense from a more technology adoption approach, because if you need to build it, then you need to build other things, and then it would develop things.
A statement. I like that.
Yeah.
What about in the world? I hear the word stablecoin, I feel like, all the time these days. It's really in the last few months, I see it on LinkedIn and I hear about it. I mean, it's just, do you think stablecoin is finally having its day?
Without a doubt.
Without a doubt.
Without a doubt. It's gonna come, because you can see the fee compression. Like, from what you're seeing right now is that bankers and people that just want to earn money from a large scales are moving into the space, right? You've seen it quite some years in the US, but you see people that can earn a bip on a transaction, they're moving in big scale. So I think stablecoin is now, it's going to happen. Like, it's already happened, right? But I think it's for sure it's going to be something that's gonna be more. Like, now the banks are accepting it, like Swift are accepting it. Like, it's gonna happen, and it already happened. But I think it's more, you ask about stablecoin, and I think stablecoin is still, most of them are based on currency, right? So it's just digitalizing something that maybe doesn't work, because you still got fluctuation in what exchange rate is. You still have all these things. I more believe in the programmable money, or self-improving money, meaning, why shouldn't we just have a currency who I'll call the currency, but have let's call it a token that's basically reflecting the global market. Right. So could be, let's say, a stablecoin that's backed by USD, euro, real estate. Like you could basically have a world coin that's reflecting. I mean, that's reflecting the state of the market from a global scale. Like right now, if you take the example of you have a US and an euro, I mean that's a stable back. They're fluctuating in between. Like then the US are doing something, then it goes up, then it goes down, then it goes up, then it goes down. Euro go up, down. So you still need to choose. Like you can still be out of luck, and you choose to put everything in USDC instead of like euro stablecoin. You could lose money, like real money buying power. So why not have more mindset of saying, okay, how can we make a stable coin that's world based? Saying, let's make a stable coin that's 50% backed by US dollars, 50% by euro. As the simple example, that means you get the average, like you get the average of how they're performing. You can add more into that, like real world assets. There's other things that's showcasing how the world's actually doing, right? Like, so there's been a Danish project who I really thought it was extremely interesting on GSU that was thinking about, like, let's take, I think it was 20 plus something different financial parameters, and let's put that as a performance of how the world are doing, how is the world buying power doing. So I think stablecoin is just like, it's just based on currencies and fiat money. But let's think next step and saying, instead of having the battle between US and euro and yens, and like right now there's a battle who's going to win the stablecoin, but for average Joe, like for you and me, it's still like if we bet on the wrong one, our buying power is still going to go down.
And this would be algorithmically issued, so it would just be automatically issued. There would be no one in charge of printing these world coins, I take it.
Yeah, and that's where I think the issue is because again, do you like a national bank or not? I personally like the national bank. I like that someone are thinking, like we've seen what's going on with in the US. Like you actually had someone saying, hey, chill, chill with what you're doing right now. You're doing politics, but we need to make sure we don't get a meltdown, we get high inflation. So I still think there need to be some kind of central government or someone regulating it, because algorithmic in the perfect world that would work. But if we're realistic, we need someone sitting with a lot of experience to figuring it out. And that's where it becomes like, are then someone governing it? Are you just putting more power into one instead of multiple? So that's where it becomes a little bit more philosophically and what way you should go. But you can see digitalization and real world asset with that opportunity that you have, you can make a more stable coin than a currency-based stablecoin. And I think that's for me from a philosophical point of view, that's where it becomes interesting if you really want to do it different, right? Like a stable coin is just saying that it's going to be the US versus euro versus yen, right? There's going to, or maybe ruble as well. Like there's going to be this battle, which is just the fiat battle taking place online right now, where the US are ahead with 99.7% of all stablecoins is USD, and now euro is coming in. It's still going to be a battle between currency and different states. So it's not really solving that. It's easier to transfer, instant transfer, lower cost, but it's not solving you as a consumer with a stable, stable buying power, right? So it's not solving some of the things that everyone initially thought that Bitcoin could solve. So I think there's this next layer, which is geopolitical.
Yeah, it's super interesting. The whole philosophical kind of aspect to it, I think it's super interesting. But speaking of political, what is your take on the political situation for blockchain and crypto in the Nordics?
Really bad. Like extremely bad. And that's why I said I was a little bit depressed. I think, again, it's going back to the industry. Like we haven't really talked about all the opportunities. We haven't really talked about the UN are using blockchain on a large scale. Like no one haven't really talked about it. Maersk is using, no one really talked about it. So I think it's going back to everyone thinks about trading and it's a risky thing, right? But that's the current, that's the token, that's the trading, that's the crypto part of it. That's what everyone has been talking about. Everyone are talking about like financial gain, bad actors. We haven't been talking about what the infrastructure actually are doing. And I think and it's complicated for sure, but I think public elected and public media have totally missed out of this one, right? So that means that people are not talking about all the good things. Everyone thinks it's about trading, bad actors, and insanely high gains, casinos. And that means that It's not on anyone's agenda. It's not on anyone's a list of things they want to run for when there's a new election next year. Like it's just not important for anyone. That means it's not prioritized. So there's nowhere where blockchain is part of a political agenda, if that be at Vækstfonden or IFO or you name it, some of the institution that's driving innovation. Blockchain is not really there on agenda. So it's not that important. That it means from a regulatory point of view, we're falling behind, like really falling behind. And I see it on I would almost say daily basis. Mika's getting in, Dark8, CAF, and companies are coming in. Denmark have a really good brand, like a really good brand for growth companies and for people building something. And there's uncertainty. Like there's uncertainty on private legislation. Like there's still a law going like 100 years back where there's asymmetric taxation. It's insane. Digital asymmetric approach towards it. Like why should you go to Denmark? And larger companies looking at, they don't get their license because they're not proper and fit. They're not like really Danish. Like what the hell? Sorry for my language, but so there's this thing where we're just really falling behind. That's due to there is not public elected that have it as a focus area. That's going back to, I only like to point finger of something you can change yourself. That's because we haven't talked about the real things that blockchain can change. And I think that's the issue we haven't, and that's why I haven't been part of a podcast. I think this is the first Danish podcast that I've ever been part of. That's because we just haven't done it, right? We haven't talked about all the good use cases. So we need to talk about the use cases. So public elected see it as an important thing. It is, at the end of the day, just a way to attract more companies and retain more companies. It's just a way to create more people that can work in an industry, high level paid tech people, retain and attract talent and capital, right? In a deep tech sector. Like at the essence, from a national perspective, we get more companies, we get more high tech people working in the industry, and we get more capital, right? Which is good for the GDP, like which is good for us as a state. And that's just as the essence what it is. And that's not the discussion that you hear when you're talking with public elected, right? That's what you're doing in AI or deep tech or machine learning or defense tech, and like there's the whole necessity, but at the end of the day, it's a way to attract a lot of tech companies and tech employees to Denmark. And that's not the discussion we're having, right? That's not the public sentiment towards it. It's still, did someone earn a lot of money? Did they report tax, right? So I think it's just a circle that needs to be broken right away.
Speaking of use cases, what is the UN using blockchain for?
So multiple different reasons. So to put it in content, they created something called Alternative FinTech Lab. They did that 5 years ago to look at financial alternatives to help reach the development goals. They started out 5 years ago. They did a lot of testing, a lot of things. And then 2 years ago, they thought like, why not ask everyone in UN, like everyone employed, how they could see blockchain could solve an issue they're sitting with. So they create a hackathon. They had 600 people applying for it. And I think it's from 62 different UN government agencies actually applied for it. So they have 600 hackathon cases looking into solve something, and then went through a hackathon accelerator. So they actually now have a lot of data on real use cases where it can be solved. And the real use cases, there's multiple different real use cases, but we talked about stable coins and transaction wasn't that important in the Nordic. But if I put 1 DKK in, I want to know as much as possible go to someone who actually need it. Right now, from a UN perspective, we donate something in Denmark. It needs to go to another bank account, then it needs to go down to the region, and that's probably a central place, and then it needs to go out to someone who are going to use it. Like there's so many ways where there's intermediate that cost a lot of money. So just saving 1%, and I think the numbers are around 7% in bank fees and Forex that they're losing right now. 7%, that's insane amount. So just that use case, having a digital wallet. So when you donate, you can donate in DKK, euro, put that on chain, on a stable coin, transfer directly to the person that need it. I'm not saying the individual, but maybe the institution or the project. That would just save you a lot of money. Like that's an insane use case, straight out of the gate. Then you can look at transparency and the different projects that we're doing. Like, are we actually doing a difference? Are we actually doing something? Like the whole thing about trust and transparency? Could you build it in what you're doing? Like build in reporting, build in transparency on project. That's extremely high use case as well. And then supply chain, like real supply chain governance, showcasing where the product is actually going, measuring these things. So there's a lot of like the use cases we always talked about that blockchain can solve. On bank to bank digital identity, is there like 1 billion people that doesn't have a bank account? You can give them a digital wallet. You need to solve how you're ensuring they actually got the access for it, and like there's things you need to figure out when you implement it, but you can give someone a digital identity for voting, for getting a bank account, getting verified. Like there's a lot of things that you can actually do. You can store the online offline data on a digital wallet that you can access everywhere. So I mean, there's just so all the things that we've been talking about for 10 plus years, and the whole reason, I mean, that's something they need. And I think the why as well is that Trump and people have been cutting budget for the UN. Like, is it 19-20% of the global budget have been cut? So they need to do something. And as well, there is a thing with the development goals. In my point of view, like we need to reach development goals, right? We need to accelerate things. And I think there's an urgency on a global scale to do things. So they've really changed their mindset, and I've been extremely impressed. It's not a central decision. It had been a decentralized decision, at least as I see it. A lot of people on all the different agencies actually saw this technology could do something. So, and they're doing a conference here in Denmark, the 3rd, the 4th, and the 5th November. There's going to be a blockchain council where all the big protocols are going to come, going to get their thing on it. They're going to present all the different use cases, like pitch competition. So there's a lot of stuff going on right now. And just back to maybe the use case that does make so much sense in Denmark, digital identity, and it of course makes sense in the Nordic, but in real world, like that makes a lot of sense. So that's extremely exciting again. And that's something again, like we haven't really talked about it. No one actually know what's going on. And again, going back to that's just maybe because we haven't talked about it, or maybe they haven't talked about it. So this is extremely exciting. Let's see how it pans out. Let's see if it actually gets really implemented. Let's see if it's actually going to be more than just showcasing it, if it's going to be implemented. But that's something where we in Nordic Blockchain Association are working really close with them, and we have proposed them to do a Nordic Applied Blockchain Center. So we're working with them to say, let's make a center here in Denmark where we together with the UN try to help these solutions go to market and be implemented. So that's one of the things we're working on here in NBA. And hopefully very soon we'll be able to go out loud and say it and basically showcase it. So that's there's a lot of exciting things going on.
Wow, that's amazing. If people want to keep up with you or the work you do at NBA, where should they go?
Go to our homepage and our LinkedIn. It's just nordicblockchain.com, and on LinkedIn it's Nordic Blockchain. That's where we try to communicate what we're doing. We do around 4 to 5 events each month. In the Nordic region, we do a large conference. Next year, it's going to be the largest again. We keep on growing. That's going to be in Stockholm. We have different communication channels. So we got a Discord channel where we're talking to people. We got a Telegram channel, and we got newsletters. And we have as well, take a step back, what NBA are doing. Besides, we do a lot of meetups where people meet. We have working groups. So if you want to do it different, like join NBA, we are part of working group with new legislation. We've got working group with new standards. We've got a lot of roundtables. So we are quite a large community that's trying to educate. So either just go into our LinkedIn page and just follow the news and join some of our events. But if you want to be engaged, I mean, the time is now. Just reach out to us.
Wow. Yeah, we'll put links in the description. Let's bring this one home. Thank you so much, Jakob.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah.
That's a good talk.